Okay, so the first type of dependent we're going to look at is a qualifying child. To meet the requirements for a qualifying child, there's 6 tests we have to meet. Let me show you on the screen so we can take a look at the 6 tests. That was stupid. Start over. Okay, the first dependent we're going to look at is a qualifying child. This is the most common because it's usually the child of the parents who are on the tax return. There's a few tests that have to be met in order to satisfy the requirements to claim somebody as a qualifying child, and we're going to take a look at those right now. Okay, to be a qualifying child, you have the following 6 tests to meet. The first one is the relationship. They must be related to you. Usually it's your son, your daughter, your brother, your sister, something along those lines. Fudge. So to qualify for a qualifying child, there are 6 tests that we have to meet. The first test is the relationship test. This is where the person has to be related to you, usually as your child or your sibling or a dependent, not a dependent, a descendant of those people. So that's the relationship test. If they are related to you like that, then they pass this test. The next one is the domicile test. This is where they have to live with you. You have to provide more than half their support to keep them housed. And so as long as you do that, you pass this test. The next one is the age test. This one's pretty simple. They got to be under the age of 19. If they're over 19, then we can look at to see if they're a full-time student. If they're a full-time student, then they can be under the age of 24. So 19 and 24 are the 2 ages to keep in mind. If they're under those ages, you're okay. And just as a side note, to be qualified as a full-time student, you just have to have been going to school for 5 months of the year. So this qualifies people like seniors who graduate during the year and only went to school for the first 5 months. Now they're qualified as a qualifying child for the entire year. The joint return test, this basically means your dependent really can't be married, but if they are, they can't file a joint return with their spouse. The only reason they might file a joint return and still qualify would be if they file a return just to claim a refund. So maybe they do not have a filing requirement because they're well below the filing thresholds we talked about earlier, but they would be getting a refund back, so they file a return just to get the refund. And then the citizenship test, they got to be a citizen of the United States, Mexico, or Canada, or an adopted child if it's a foreign-born child, an adopted child. And finally, the self-support test. This means the child cannot provide for more than half of their support, which is usually pretty easy if they're living in your house under your roof, eating your food. That's not a problem. But in some cases, you might have children who are providing more than half of their support. And in that case, they would fail this test and you wouldn't be able to claim them as a qualifying child. But if you meet all of these tests, then the dependent is a qualifying child. And again, like we talked about, that distinction is very important for some credits and other things of that nature that would provide you with more money for that dependent. And next, we're going to look at qualifying relatives, which is a little different, but pretty much the same.